I'm Mike,
And I'm Matt.
and this is The Coin Show.
Take just one last breath before you enter.
On this episode of The Coin Show, we interview Bob Shippee, author of the book Pleasure and Profit 100 Lessons for Building and Selling a Collection of Rare Coins. We talk about 3-cent nickels, and we talk about the coolest thing to walk into Matt's shop this week. But first, the news. The news is brought to you by the American Numismatic Association. The National Money Show is coming to Portland, Oregon on March 5th through 7th. Sign up today at nationalmoneyshow.com. Matt, the United States Mint will issue a reverse proof silver Roosevelt dime in 2016.
Here we go.
Do you know that the Roosevelt dime is the only coin that has never received a commemorative treatment at all?
Huh, no, I didn't know that. But
Yeah.
but yeah, now that you mention it.
The only special one that they ever did was in 1996 when they issued one from the West Point Mint with a W mint mark. Other than that, it has been as plain Jane and as utilitarian as any series goes. Now, according to a report in Coin World, the coin will be part of a set that includes the 2015 W March of Dimes dollar and 2 special silver Roosevelt dimes. The Mint has yet to reveal what the second dime will be.
Probably a West Point strike or something. Would be my guess.
Well, you never know, but they do go on to say that Mint officials have also said that collectors should expect additional Mint products and reverse proof coins in 2015, including the possibility of a reverse proof set to mark the 50th anniversary of proof coin production at the San Francisco Mint.
Reverse proof set.
Yes. Now, that notion to me is a little confusing, as proof set production didn't begin in San Francisco until 1968. So that's a couple of years early. Now, to be fair, the special mint sets, it is fairly well common knowledge that even though they did not have a mint mark on them, that most of them were manufactured in San Francisco. And they started in 1965. But the San Francisco proof sets, yes, began in 1968. So,
man.
There's
Another in the trend of many that are coming, I'm sure.
I'm sure. And I think, honestly, that a reverse proof set would be a very interesting and novel idea. I just hope it's a one and done.
No way. Not a chance, dude.
Probably not.
Not a chance.
Can you see the reverse proof Lincoln cents?
I'm telling you, that's what's going to happen. It's just going to keep getting diluted, more and more sets for the people to buy, and
keep manufacturing stuff until they beg you to quit.
Yeah, and I'm begging them to quit.
Yeah, you're already begging them to quit.
I am, yes.
So we'll see what happens. PCGS has launched a new feature for registry collectors. Now, this is a new feature for PCGS set registry participants. It was unveiled at the Long Beach show, and the idea is that you can use high-resolution images and place your coins into a virtual album.
Oh, I saw this. Yeah, these are cool.
Yeah, it's available for free to all participants and can be done simply by clicking Create Digital Album on the page of each set. And you can customize your album's texture and colors and basically make it look like a virtual Whitman or Dansko album. But best of all, you can then share it to any number of social media outlets and let others tour your set.
Yeah, I think that's cool because one of the complaints that I get a lot from people that are doing graded sets is that, well, I just don't have a way to display them, and I'd really like to look at them. and not have to just pull one slab out of the box. And so
I like the social
Yeah.
media aspect
Yeah.
in the fact that you can actually share them virtually and you can really show off your collection.
You can tweet me your set of certified Lincoln cents and proof.
Yes, you can. So if you click on the coin, it brings up the full picture, or you can just kind of thumb over them with the mouse as well. It's really easy and intuitive, and it allows collectors of certified coins a new way to display their collection the classic way that people have always done it, through social media.
Is that the classic way they've always done it?
Well, that's according to our research staff. That's the classic. The Royal Canadian Mint is issuing a special $10 maple leaf gold coin this year, again, and this one features an early effigy of Queen Elizabeth from 1965. Now, this series was introduced last year with a coin that featured the original 1953 effigy of Queen Elizabeth. 2 future coins will feature portraits from 1990 and 2003.
Interesting.
1,500 coins will be issued each year at a price of $649.95 Canadian, or about $5.20 US. They have a face value of $10 and weigh 7.8 grams, which is roughly a quarter ounce.
This series makes me wonder if even the Canadians got tired of seeing old Queen Elizabeth on their coins.
She is not amused.
It seems interesting that they would go back and put her younger effigy back onto the coins.
Well, but think about this.
And we always comment about the coins with Elizabeth on the one side that it's like, oh, here's that old bag again.
Well, think about this though. She has now reigned for so long that they've had to change her effigy. This is the 4th portrait that they're on.
Wow, that's cool though. I mean, good for her.
She's been around. Yeah, good for her. She's ruled the country for almost 70 years now. It's
not many places can say that.
That is a long time. 2015 Kennedy halves are now available directly from the United States Mint.
Okay, about the only way you can get them.
CoinNews.net is reporting that the 2015 coins will bear the original 1964 version of Kennedy's portrait sculpted by Gilroy Roberts. Last year the Mint issued a total of 13 different Kennedy halves. 13, count them.
Nope, I don't want
to. Can you say oversaturated? Sure you can. 6 of them featured the 2013 portrait and 7 the original 1964 version. But the Mint has decided to return to the original for future issues, which I think is kind of nice.
Yeah.
I like the high relief version so much better. It's a little bit larger version of the portrait. If you remember, it kind of goes into the word liberty, and it's flat and dull as.
In an aesthetic sense, yes, you're exactly right. But for me, it just seems like something else to market for them to market. I know I've been railed on them tonight, but man. I'm just familiar with what happened to the stamp hobby, and the post office started just issuing commemoratives and different types of commemoratives and this and that. And you know what? Today, stamps are worth 10% a catalog at best. So imagine if every coin in your collection all of a sudden just happened to be worth 10% of what it's worth today, just because the mint pumps out so much stuff and drives away collectors.
Well, I think that last year that could definitely be argued, but this year they're only issuing 1 portrait
that we know.
Well, they're saying that all the future, or at least CoinNews.net is reporting that all of the future issues are going to bear the original 64 portrait.
Well, aesthetically, I do like it better.
I like that better.
Yeah.
And finally, in the news, the Royal Canadian Mint will issue a $100 for $100 Canadian horse silver coin and a 25-cent Canadian rock rabbit gold coin in 2015.
Huh? 25 cent?
25 cents. The 9999 gold coin is German gold. 9999. The 49's gold coin will have a mintage of 10,000 coins, weigh 1/2 of a gram, and have a face value of 25 cents.
Wait, 1/2 of a gram?
0.5 grams.
Wow, that's
It is a
tiny.
tiny, tiny coin.
You sneeze something bigger than that.
Yes, while the silver $100 horse coin will weigh 31.83 grams and have a diameter of 40 millimeters.
Wow, that gold coin is 1/62nd of a troy ounce.
Yes. A second 2015 100 for $100 coin will be issued in June. The theme for the second coin has not yet been revealed. Now, my thing is, can I ask what the deal is with these seemingly illogical denominations and compositions?
We're getting ready to make a $75 coin this year, so.
Right, but I mean, there's no rhyme or reason to this stuff. I mean, I can understand when, your seniorage is what you're aiming for, by issuing coins that have an ounce of gold for, with a $50 denominator. I get that. But for some of these coins, they have way more metal than face, and some have less metal than face. And I just can't figure out, what are they trying? Where are they going with this?
Who knows?
So if you like the really huge silver coins, or if you like the really teeny tiny gold coins, there's something for you. The one thing that I think is at least a common thread through both of them is that they are pretty well affordable to the average guy.
Yeah, well, and you can spend them if you need to.
Although that
you wouldn't want to spend that 25-cent gold coin.
Yeah, that 25-cent gold coin. I mean, can you imagine throwing that up on the bar?
Oh, yeah. I put it in the jukebox and I couldn't get a song to play.
You could play a golden oldie.
Oh, that's bad.
If you've never experienced the National Money Show before, you can do so for free when the ANA brings its annual Midwinter Show to Portland, Oregon, March 5th through 7th. Admission is free on the final day of the show, Saturday, March 7th. Come take a class for free on coin collecting basics and walk the bourse floor where more than 500 dealers are standing by ready to buy and sell. There are also free activities for kids in the Kids Zone, world-class collector exhibits, and much, much more. Learn more at nationalmoneyshow.com. We are joined today by Bob Shippee. Bob is a semi-retired international banker, a lifelong coin collector, and a 13 handicap golfer. That's pretty impressive. His credentials as a writer are meager. A dozen annual Christmas letters that are only rarely are rejected as spam by family and friends. Plus, of course, many thousands of tedious emails and memoranda generated in his 37 years as a banker. He has written his first book, which is entitled Pleasure and Profit, 100 Lessons for Building and Selling a Collection of Rare Coins. Please welcome to our show, Mr. Bob Shippee. Bob, welcome to the show. It mentions in your bio that you also have a hole-in-one to your credit.
That's absolutely true. It was 2004 in
2004.
2004 in Portugal at the Val de Lobo Ocean Course.
Okay, so now we have to ask all the specifics. How long was the hole?
155 yards, uphill, big gaping trap in front of the green. And I hit a very good shot, but I could not see it go in the hole. So the four of us trudged up to the green, and one of the other folks said, your ball's not on the green, maybe it's in the hole. So we actually looked in the hole first before scurrying around to the back to see if it had gone over the green, and in fact it was in the hole.
That's awesome.
That is always fun to find. Bob, why did you write the book Pleasure and Profit?
When I finished the typeset that I was building and consigned it to Stack's Bowers for auction, I thought to myself, over the last 15 years, you've learned a huge amount and made a whole bunch of mistakes along the way. How can I share that experience with other people? And so I thought I would just write a book that would be the book that I wish I had read 15 years earlier.
That's great.
Containing from a collector's point of view rather than a dealer's point of view or a promoter's point of view, the kinds of things that I learned, the many mistakes I made, and a real honest statement of the profits and losses that were achieved over that period.
I kind of looked at it as if you could go back in time and talk to your prior self, it would be the things that you would relay to yourself before you started on the endeavor.
Exactly right.
Bob, you mentioned a story about Christmas 1959 in your book, which our listeners might enjoy. How did you get your start in collecting coins?
Well, for a few years before 1959, I'd been collecting, as many people of my generation did, what we called pennies, Lincoln cents primarily, some nickels. I focused on Buffalo nickels and Mercury dimes. And my parents saw that this wasn't just a flash in the pan. I kept it up for more than 6 months. And the money that I collected on a paper route would be reinvested in looking through more coins from the bank. And I even bought a few silver dollars and looked for rare dates because silver dollars were, as you remember, maybe you remember, were available at face value in those days from the banks. And then at Christmas in 1959, my parents gave me the big Christmas present. And the big Christmas present sometimes was something you didn't care much about, like a winter coat. But this looked mysterious. It was a 2 foot by 3 foot square item wrapped all up. And I ripped open the paper and found a plywood board that had been covered with felt. And on the felt were tacked in a very impressive collection of large cents and Indian cents. The earliest date large cent was 1797, I think.
Wow.
And the Indian cents were almost complete. In fact, the only things that were missing were the 08S and 09S. There was a very nice 1877 in there, and there was even an 1864L.
Wow.
That's no small gift.
No, it was a very impressive collection. And so, I asked, where did this all come from? And it turned out that my father's grandfather had started collecting coins. I'm not exactly sure when, but maybe in the 1850s or 60s. And his collection had been passed down to my father's father and then to my father, and then I got it.
That's awesome.
Many numismatists collect as children, and then they return to the hobby later as adults. And in your book, I like the term that you use. You call it hibernation. What is it that brought you back to collecting?
Well, the passion had never gone away. I kept all those Whitman blue books and kept those coins, although that I got at that Christmas in 1959, although I quite quickly took them off the board because those tacks that were around the coins to hold them on the board were probably not the best way to preserve coins. But as I said, the passion was always there, but the time wasn't necessarily there. The finances weren't necessarily there. But then, there came a time when the kids were well advanced in school, and I was doing reasonably well in the bank I was working for. And I noticed that there was an auction coming up in New York City at Stack's, and thought to myself, well, why don't I give that a try?
And then the fire reignited.
It absolutely did. And I thought this auction business, my goodness, it was the easiest way to buy coins. And you could buy them at what I thought at the time were wholesale prices, not retail prices, because the dealers were all there and I was going to get as good a deal as the dealers.
That's very true. Even today, it's still true. I notice that at the auctions all the time. So why don't you kind of give us just a quick, maybe an abridged version about the book itself? Your experience with going back into collecting, and then what kind of made you decide that you wanted to pursue something along the lines of a registry set or a type set?
Uh, well, as I describe in the book, what I did decide to collect eventually was a complete typeset with an example of basically every different type of coin, design of coin from 1792 to the present, and from the denominations of half cent through $20 gold piece. I had experimented with a few other collections that intrigued me. I had always liked trade dollars, and I collected those for a while, and thought $3 gold pieces were quite intriguing because it's a curious denomination, and because the mintages of many of the issues are quite low, although the prices, except for a few of the issues, don't necessarily reflect that. But the typeset I found gave me more things to collect. Complete typeset is close to 150 coins. And the variety of designs was very attractive. And it just seemed a more interesting challenge.
I've always found that when we get collectors that come into my store, you can kind of tell the guys that aren't going to be set collectors because they're working on 8 different sets at the same time. And I always recommend to those guys, I say, you know what, you might look at a typeset because I've always been a big fan of typesets. I know Mike is a fan of typesets as well.
That's where I got my start.
Yep. And so that's kind of something I've always been fond of, and I've put together typesets for folks that I've helped put them together that just go in a Dansko 7070, and then just recently we helped a customer assemble the on PCGS registry first year typeset. So from any different level, I love typesets, and I'm always very fond of typesets themselves. So why the well, I guess staying on that same train of thought, how was your relationship with the different coin dealers that you dealt with over the years?
The first dealer I dealt with in a serious way was the famous Q David Bowers.
Oh, he's been on the show before. He's a friend of the show, actually. We like him a lot.
I would think so. He's a friend to all of us who are serious, and I don't know whether he knows how many people he's influenced, but it has to be legions. So I bought some of my early trade dollars from Bowers and Marina, as the firm was named at the time, and I remember one of them was in 1879 that looked extremely attractive in the photograph that I saw. It was a pretty primitive photograph back then, and looked even more attractive when I got it. It was Mint State 62, and I sent it in for regrading because I thought it was a terrific looking coin, and it came back as a 63, which lent credence to that firm's motto at the time that they only bought coins that were high quality for the grade. So that was an excellent experience with him and with that firm, and I came to know a number of other people there, John Pack and Ray Marina a little bit, Chris Karstead, and some others.
Now, you kind of touched on the eye appeal there. And one thing that we took from going through your book is that you recommend that collectors never compromise when it comes to eye appeal. Why is this a good policy?
I think it's a good policy for several reasons. One is if the coin has good eye appeal, you'll enjoy looking at it and you'll enjoy showing it to your friends and fellow collectors, and it just is a more pleasurable experience. But almost as important is that if it has nice eye appeal to you, it's very likely that it'll have nice eye appeal to others when it comes time to sell. And just looking at the other side of it, I did buy early on some coins that didn't have much eye appeal. In fact, I remember one that's it's mentioned in the book. There's an 1885 Liberty seated half dollar that's has a lofty grade. It's a proof 66, and I think there's only one coin better in the population reports. But it's not much to look at. It has no pizzazz. It's definitely not ugly, but it's not something that's exciting in any way. And I held that for a number of years and lost a little money on it when I sold it because someone else looking at that coin just thinks it's fairly ordinary and didn't garner much of a price.
Well, that's very good advice.
Now, in the book, Bob, you describe your first bungle, the purchase of a 1955 double dice set. Now, why was it a mistake, and what lesson can we all take from that?
Well, as I recall, I don't remember the date of that auction offhand, but I do know I showed up to the auction with a red book dated 5 years earlier. And that was my only pricing resource. And I felt very smug as I sat there and looked at a red book and saw that the 55 double die in mint state 63, I think was what I was looking at, an annex graded coin, was worth, I don't know, $900, and I probably got it for $600 and thought I was the smartest guy in the world. Well, my book was 5 years out of date. Coin prices, in fact, had gone down, as happens sometimes with any kind of thing that one can purchase. And besides that, even though this coin was graded mint state 63 in an annex holder, if you looked closely at it, there was a little bit of rub on the high points. And when I had it regraded by PCGS, their view was that it was an AU 58, and $600 was probably the right price at the time for an AU 58 coin. And I think I more or less broke even when I sold that a couple of years later, so it wasn't a big financial bath, but it wasn't the home run that I was hoping for.
You also owned, interestingly, the Eliasberg 1909 SVDB. Now, was the main appeal of that coin to you its pedigree?
No, I in fact was at 3 of the Eliasberg auctions, and it was absolutely magnificent looking at his coin collection. And I bought a few coins there and for the most part lost money on those purchases because what I've seen several times is that there's so much publicity attached to name sales that people, collectors and probably some dealers get very excited and pay huge prices for those pedigrees. In the case of the 1909 SVB, I did not buy that coin at the Eliasberg sale. I bought it subsequently at a big loss to the seller, but a very nice profit to me. I eventually sold it. And that coin, I enjoyed having the pedigree, but it was a truly spectacular red-brown example, looking just the way a red-brown coin ought to look, with no spots and plenty of luster. And it was just a delight to have that.
Were there any specific coins that you absolutely fell in love with? And how would you recommend people take the emotion out of their purchasing decisions?
That's a very tough one because there are two sides to that. The coin that's on the cover of the book, which is an 1806 quarter, I absolutely fell in love with as soon as I saw it flipping through coins at a lot viewing an auction. And I was not looking for classic quarter. I was just passing some time. But this coin was so beautiful that I, wrote myself a little note in the catalog, did a little research on the price, and was prepared to bid quite aggressively on this. But it was graded AU 58, not an uncirculated coin in the view of PCGS at the time. And so I got it for a very reasonable, at the time, 33 all. 8 years later, when I sold that, and again, I probably should check the book to be exactly right on this, but the hammer price was, or the final selling price, including the commission, was somewhere around $25,000. And the coin was now in a Mint State 62 holder, having spent a little bit of time in a Mint State 61 holder. And the cataloger who wrote the description of this coin in 2007 when I sold it said it was strong for the grade, almost hinting that it could be a 63 someday. So that's a coin I fell in love with. It worked out fabulously well. But there's no doubt at the other end of the spectrum, there have been other coins, especially beautifully toned coins, where I've fallen in love with them, not done the research, kept my hand in the air far longer than I should have, and ended up with a coin I greatly enjoyed while I owned it, but a loss when I sold it. And there are several of those written about in the book.
Yeah, I have to say, in all fairness, that you cover coins that you not only did very well with, but some that you didn't do quite so well with. One that kind of hit me personally in my wheelhouse is there was a 1962 Deep Cameo Franklin that you had that was just an absolute loser. And you said in the book that the coin did poorly, and I was wondering why you thought the coin did so poorly when you sold it.
The coins that I lost money on, and I think I'm brutally honest in the book about the coins I made money on and lost money on. And toward the end of the book, I talk about the biggest losers as well as the biggest winners. In the majority of the cases, when I did poorly on a coin, it was because of I'm going to blame the PCGS set registry. There was a hole in my collection, and I had in front of me in an auction catalog a coin that would fill a hole. And, if it wasn't too outrageously expensive, I would just keep on bidding until I bought it. And it was definitely those kinds of decisions which led to most of the losses that are enumerated in the book.
Now, do you think that without the set registry, the PCGS registry, that you would have attempted this collection, or is it due to the registry that you completed this collection?
I have thought about that, and I would answer it this way. Without the set registry, I think it's very likely I would have tried a complete typeset collection because it is so interesting. You can learn so much about history and the different denominations and different designs. But what I think I probably would have done was skip a whole bunch of coins that may technically be necessary to complete a typeset, but which aren't materially different enough from some of the other types in a typeset that would make me want to buy them, except for the PCGS set registry. And therefore, I might have ended up with a set of 50 or 75 coins instead of 150 coins. Each one of them would have been extraordinarily interesting in some way or another. And my suspicion is I would have had as many coins that ultimately resulted in losses as turned out to be the case. And just to put that in perspective, in the book I disclosed that when I sold the 138 lots that were in this collection, and there were more coins than there were lots because a few of the modern coins were grouped together into multi-coin lots. When I sold that collection, 62% of the lots resulted in profits and 38% resulted in losses. And the profits overwhelmed the losses, fortunately. But it's a good reminder to people that, in my case, over a third of the coins that I bought, hopefully most of them intelligently, and many of them held for a number of years, resulted in losses.
Interesting.
Now, one of my favorite stories in the book was when you upgraded your 1851 Trime, which was an MS-65, for an MS-66 1851 Philadelphia coin. And I think that there is a really great lesson for, the people that listen to this. Why was this a mistake?
Well, it's a mistake for a couple of reasons. One, I paid two commissions to purchase two coins, which are essentially identical in terms of design. They are identical in terms of design. One has one more grading point, which at the time was worth a little bit more in the PCGS set registry ranking, and therefore had that attraction. But as a coin, the 1851 that I bought first, and as I recall, I bought that from Laura Sperber at Legend, is a much more interesting coin. It is certainly rarer than its Philadelphia cousin, and it's the only New Orleans mint coin in that series, and I think it's the only mint marked coin in that series. I'm not entirely sure about that.
Yeah,
that would be correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a much more interesting coin, and except for the set registry, I never would have bought the Philadelphia issue of 1851.
Now, I think it's interesting to note because we're talking a lot about the set registry, and people, when they think of registry sets, tend to think top populations. But something that you made very clear in the book is that AU58 seems to be what you consider the optimal collector's grade. And if you look through the appendix on the different grades of coins that you sold, the ones that you did best with overall were the ones in AU58. Why would you consider that to be the premium grade to buy?
Well, I don't think it's a premium grade for 20th and 21st century coins necessarily, but certainly for classic collector coins, 18th and 19th century coins, it's a spectacular grade because all of the original detail is there to be seen. In most cases, there's a good amount of original luster. And compared to slightly higher graded coins, mint state 60, 61, even 62, AU58s will often have fewer distracting, let's call them bag marks or some signs of mishandling. So a lower grade uncirculated coin, as you guys both well know, can sometimes be a little bit gnarly.
That's a good way to put it.
And I really tried to stay away from mint state 60 and still do, because I still do collect coins, just not in the form of a type collection. And mint state 60 is a very tough grade. It may be technically uncirculated, but there are enough distractions for graders to give it the lowest of 11 whole number grades, not to mention the pluses and minuses. And so I thought AU58 was, for those reasons, much more attractive. And as I note in the book, in a few cases, those coins magically became 61s or 62s with the passage of time.
Funny how that works, isn't it?
Delightful, actually.
Well, that's exactly right.
You recommend creating mini collections within your collection. Why would you consider this to be a good idea?
It's funny you mentioned that. I think no one other than myself noticed, but I did have within this typeset a mini collection of 1804 dated gold pieces. The quarter eagle, half eagle, and eagle that were in my collection of those types were all dated 1804. And similarly, there was a nice little sub collection of 1900 dated silver coins, I guess mostly silver coins, or in other words, or at least non-gold coins that all fit into the category of working within the typeset, but also working within the 20th century typeset that PCGS had a separate category for. And so those were amusing to me, but I'm not sure anybody else other than myself noticed it. I guess I also had a bit of a mini collection of first year of issue coins. In several cases, those are the easiest to put your hands on because when a new denomination came out, there were often a lot of them made to help introduce them to the public. And that also sort of reinforces when a particular type starts, and just is a nice reminder of the change points in a typeset.
Just a couple more things, and then we'll let you go. We appreciate you taking the time with us. My favorite piece of advice in the book was lesson 26, which reads, "Wait for the right piece before spending your money. Except for a few great rarities, most dates and mint marks of all denominations appear at auctions or in dealers' inventories with some regularity." Also, I noticed that you refer back to lesson 22 over and over again in the book. Would you consider that to be the most important lesson?
Is that the lesson about modern coins?
Let's see, lesson 22. Let me look it up really quick
You think he
for
wrote
you.
the book, but yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. Lesson 22. Don't spend a lot of time or money on items you don't care about. Yes, completing the collection of modern issues was somewhat satisfying, but I rarely looked at these coins or showed them to others. This is not to say that collecting modern coins isn't worthwhile. It can be interesting, educational, and fun. Indeed, enough other people had an interest in these proof sets that I was able to make a reasonable profit on this lot. But they're not rare coins, and seeking an imperceptibly finer example of a common modern coin wasn't something that gave me much of a thrill.
Those words are, for me, absolutely true. And yet I hesitated on writing those words because I don't mean in any way to denigrate the collecting of modern coins. When I started out collecting, absolutely were modern coins, and I know an awful lot of people still do that today and get a great deal of pleasure out of it. But I remember there's one lot of the 138 that didn't sell, and it's a selection of 3 Jefferson nickels, which you could look up in the book. And as I recall, the reserve, there wasn't a reserve price, but the opening bid was $200 for those 3 coins, and no one raised his hand, and they remained unsold, and they're sitting in a safe deposit box someplace. And if anybody wants them, you can have them for $200, which is probably cheap. But
Yeah, they were a 38S, a 42S, and a 1964 plane.
right, in very nice
Yes.
condition, as I recall.
Yes.
But the point of that was, I would never show those 3 coins to friends. Everybody carried a bunch of Jefferson nickels in their pockets, and these were just 3 Jefferson nickels that looked, pretty much the same as what they'd get in pocket change, except maybe a little nicer. Now, the 1942 or 43, one of the wartime nickels that had spectacular toning in this collection was something that I loved to look at, and people love to see. And that's, I think, a lesson in itself. That was a $500 coin in the condition that it was in, but because of its spectacular toning, I spent over $3,000 on it, and some other fool paid a similar price when it went to auction when I sold it.
Wow.
So that's something to me that's very special, a spectacularly toned coin, whether it's modern or one of the classic coins.
A man after my own heart.
Yeah, well, see, Matt he eschews modern coinage. He's not terribly fond of it, and I'm the guy that's always on that bandwagon and trying to espouse the value of modern coins and how much people like to collect them.
We agree to disagree.
Yes, we do. Lastly, I'd like to ask you, why the name Wakabuck Collection? And why all of the cross references to golf?
Well, there you go. First of all, Wakabuck is a section of the town of Lewisboro, New York, and it's also the name of a river, very minor river that runs through that town, and it's also the name of a golf club in that area. And at the time when I was completing this collection and thinking about writing a book, we owned a country place, a little farm that dated back to the late 1700s. It had been a dairy farm, and it had a bit of the Wakabuck River running through it. And I thought, as I was trying to name the PCGS registry set that I was building, that the Robert W. Shippee set was incredibly boring. And so I just picked this mysterious name Wakabuck because it was on my mind at the time. But as to the second part of your question, which was what?
Let's see.
Why all the references to golf?
Why all the references?
Well,
the
I think you probably covered that when you introduced.
Yeah,
the
I think you did.
I think he's an avid golfer, and
I think he is.
You take what you like, and you can relate that to a lot of other things in your life that you like.
Well, there is one other thing. Golf and coin collecting for me are both passions, and I titled the book "Pleasure and Profit," but I try to make the point in the course of the book that coin collecting should be approached from the point of view of pleasure, just the way golf should be approached from the point of view of pleasure. And if at the end of the day in coin collecting you make a profit, well, that's fantastic. And hopefully some of the lessons in this book will help people avoid losses or focus on coins that have a bigger opportunity of being profitable for them eventually. But I try to steer people away, if possible, from thinking of coins as an investment alternative to stocks and bonds. It's a small, narrow, illiquid market, coins are. And I think it's delightful to pursue coin collecting, but the profit motive shouldn't be in people's minds at the forefront.
That's great advice. So, Bob, I read that you are going to be teaching a class at the summer seminar this year.
That's absolutely true. I was contacted, I think, through the offices of Dennis Tucker, the publisher at Whitman. I was contacted by Susan McMillan, who's the education director at the ANA here in Colorado Springs, where I live. And she asked me if I'd be interested in teaching a course that was based on the book and the lessons contained in the book during the summer seminar in late June of this year. And I said I'd be delighted to, as long as she could find a true numismatist, professional numismatist, who could join me in the teaching, because it's a little presumptuous for an amateur like me to lead a course on this subject. And she said, well, how about Ken Brissett? And he and I had lunch, and he kindly agreed to join me. And so in the second session of the summer seminar this year, beginning June 28, Ken and I will be teaching a 4-day session covering the lessons in the book, and hopefully having a good time with the students, sharing stories and learning from each other. I've also promised to give small numismatic prizes to students answering questions properly. It's an added attraction.
That sounds like a class that our listeners should definitely check out if you're going to be attending the summer seminar.
Q. David Bowers has called this one of the most useful books in American numismatics. We really enjoyed you taking your time with us and coming on our show. Pleasure and Profit: 100 Lessons for Building and Selling a Collection of Rare Coins. Available on in all bookstores for only $9.95. Robert Shippee, thank you so much for coming on our show.
Matt and Mike, it was a true pleasure. Thank you.
Man, that was a lot of fun talking to Bob Shippee.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Yeah, thanks to him for coming by and joining in our little fun fest here.
Yeah, and I kind of like how when we were talking to him, he kind of tied the 3-cent pieces into what he was talking about with the 51O and the 51P.
You notice how we teed that one up for him, didn't we?
Yeah, it was ready to rock.
Well, that means that it's time for you to round out our numismatic education on 3-cent pieces with the 3-cent nickel coins.
Yeah, last episode I talked about 3-cent silvers, and this week I wanted to cover 3-cent nickels. We'll find that 3-cent nickels are a little bit different than the 3-cent silvers, which we had discussed being rather attainable for most coins. 3-cent nickels are kind of the opposite, but we'll get into that. The basic design of 3-cent nickels, the obverse features the bust of Lady Liberty, and then that is ringed by United States of America, and then the date is below. The reverse shows the Roman numeral 3, and it's surrounded by a laurel wreath with a ribbon at the bottom. So the design's pretty basic.
And vastly different from the silver version.
That
It
is
is
true.
Amazing how one actually says Liberty, the other one doesn't. The precious metal version kind of breaks all the rules, and the nickel version kind of conforms to most of them.
But you want to know something funny? They were designed by the same guy.
That is really something I didn't think about.
Yeah, James Longacre. He designed the Indian headset, the gold dollar, the shield nickel, and also the silver 3-cent piece.
Not to mention the 2-cent piece.
Well, yeah, basically the same design as the shield nickel, just
yes,
a little bit different. But yeah, he designed both the silver 3-cent piece and the 3-cent nickel. So the reason that they switched from silver to nickel is kind of interesting, and this happened in 1865. One of the reasons was the postage rate at the time was 3 cents. As we talked about last episode, the 3-cent silvers were being hoarded as well as other silver coins due to the Civil War, because by 1862, people really had no idea if the United States was going to make it through the Civil War. So hoarding of silver coins and coins with precious metals were kind of a safeguard if it really hit the fan, basically.
And wasn't it also true that the preference of silver and gold, with the value of silver constantly going up and down, that silver, it was kind of Gresham's law thing where gold was more in circulation and silver at that time was kind of being pulled more?
Yeah, I do believe so, and that was kind of, I think, so a lot of the reasoning behind it is that the folks there was a time of uncertainty and they didn't know if they were going to need to trade their silver in for food at some point. So, it was a great hoard. And also, lastly, one of the main reasons for the introduction of the nickel 3-cent piece was because the fractional currency of the day was just that. It was currency. It was not durable. It was easily lost. And honestly, the public didn't really like them. They preferred that hard money, even if it wasn't made out of silver.
I was going to say it's really funny that their mistrust of promises to pay,
Yeah.
which is basically what currency is, was replaced by a nickel coin that wasn't really worth what its face value
That's
was.
right.
So
Yep.
that's kind
Yep.
of odd.
3-cent nickels have a composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel. Now, collecting a date set. Now, this is going to be a little bit different than the 3-cent silver. The full date set of 3-cent nickels runs from 1865 until 1889. For the budget-minded collector, this is probably not a set you could put together. This is usually a coin that is normally just collected by type and included in a type set. And for the type collectors, there are some dates like 1865, which are affordable in both uncirculated and proof, which makes them an ideal choice for your type set. Now, there are a lot of other dates, for example, the later dates, 1879 to 1889, which are really tough. Most of the coins in this date range have really low mintages. Some coins are proof-only issues. So even in some of those coins, even heavily circulated examples can bring $400 or $500. And in some cases, it's actually easier to find a proof coin than it would be to find an uncirculated coin.
And as you had mentioned in the last episode, that a lot of times the proof coin was minted for collectors and was saved by collectors, and so the attrition rate of those is far smaller.
Yes.
As opposed to the circulation
coins that were actually made to be circulated. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. And then there are two dates which are proof only. That's 1877 and 1878. So the only way you could get those coins in your set is to buy a proof example. And the 1877 has a mintage of just 510 coins, which makes it the lowest mintage of the set because it's a proof-only issue, of course. But that particular date, though, even a low-end proof, like a proof 61 or proof 62, is still going to run about $3,000. But, I mean, if you really think about it, the coin only has a mintage of 510 pieces. So, that kind of, I mean, it's a rare coin, but that kind of shows you how popular it is to put together date sets of these, because if it was a really popular set, that number would be a lot higher.
Now, I'm gonna press you to reach into your bag of knowledge here.
Uh-oh.
Because I'm curious. It seems that there are 1877 and 1878 3-cent nickels are proof-only coins.
Mm-hmm.
There are also a couple of 5-cent nickel coins that are issued as a proof-only. And other than the 1804 dollar, were there any other coins that the United States Mint issued in proof only?
Yeah, 1895 Morgan. There were supposed to be Philadelphia Mint strikes, but
none have ever surfaced.
So that would be one. There are a few. I can't pull many more off the top of my head, but that's one that just jumps right out at me.
I just thought it interesting that a coin that was not made of precious metal, was issued in a proof only issue.
Well, it
is both nickel coins, 3-cent and 5-cent.
Yep. It just shows you that there were collectors. There was that collector demand, even in the 1870s, for these coins from the mint. And without those collectors, there wouldn't be any of these coins left today for anybody to collect. So that's kind of the way I look at it. They're really the fun thing about if you're looking to put together a type set of 3-cent nickels. Well, it's only one coin.
One coin.
Yep.
Yeah.
They didn't change it. There is no other type or design change of the 3-cent nickels. They were all struck in Philadelphia, so it's kind of boring. Now, collecting a proof example might be something that you want to look into, because a lot of the times, especially the early dates, the proof mintages were decent, and the coins aren't all that expensive. And I say not all that expensive. You'll still probably pay $500 or more to buy one, but for a coin with a mintage of in the thousands, you might look at that.
And something of that relative age in a proof coin, that is really
Certainly,
kind of a bargain coin.
Yeah, and the cool thing is these coins, they do come in cameo, and very seldomly you actually do see deep cameos on the marketplace. So you should really, if you're looking to put together a typeset with a proof and an unk, you should have no problem finding those because they're out there and dates they're really easy to find. Now, the one last thing I did want to cover was grading 3-cent nickels. These suckers are tough. Tough to grade. And the reason is that that nickel in there makes them hard so that you don't, it's hard to detect wear or slight traces of wear. So there's lots of what we call sliders. A coin that's an AU or an UNC could go either way. There's a little bit of wear, but you're not sure if it's strike or if it's wear. So they could kind of slide back and forth between AU and UNC. That's why we call them sliders. Also, as with many 19th century coins, there are weak strikes. Weak striking was an issue, especially as they moved on to the nickels, which was a harder metal than they had previously struck. So you do see examples with weak strikes. So if you're going to find one, try to find a fully struck example, would be my advice. You often also see these coins with clash marks and die breaks. It's not uncommon. The first traces of wear that you're going to find would be in the high points of the hair on the obverse and then in the central numerals on the reverse. Those are going to be the first places that start to show wear. And similar to the 3-cent silvers, the early dates tend to be more lustrous, better struck, and that's just it simply is, I think, because there were so many more coins that survived, that the nice ones out there were more of them out there. And these coins do tend sometimes to come, the proof coins at least, not quite so proof-like. Sometimes it's hard to tell a proof from an unk, and really the easiest way to tell is just to look at the rims, the squared rims on the proofs, whereas the more rounded rims on the uncirculated coins.
And I was going to say that at least this one has a little bit more thickness to it.
Yeah.
And so it would be easier to discern them.
It is much easier.
Regard.
Yeah, the 3-cent silvers are so thin that it is extremely hard to discern the squared rim from the rounded rim. So these coins, at least you have that going for you. You can determine them that way. So that does it. That closes out 3-cent pieces. I just was happy that we were finally able to cover them. I couldn't believe after 95 episodes we didn't cover all 3-cent pieces yet. So
it took 95 episodes for you to share your 2 cents on 3 cents.
3 cents.
Now, also, here is something that in 95 episodes I don't think we've ever done is back-to-back Matt.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that's true.
We tend to trade things off a little bit here and there, but so now we get more Matt,
more
often.
Well, we get to talk about the coolest thing, and man, once again, it is.
Well, you promised us something very cool.
I know, but something else really cool walked in too. So it's really, really a toss-up. I guess I'll go with a really, really rare coin that we talked about last time. So a couple weeks ago, a collector brought in a coin, and this was a collector I've known for a while. We've dealt several times. We're on good terms on a first name basis. I see him at the shows all the time and say hi, and he came to me and he said, "Matt, I haven't had a coin this rare in a long time." And I said, "Well, what the heck is it?" And he pulls out an 1864 S $10 gold piece, which I know most of our Marta listeners are like, "Oh, what's so special about that?" Well, if you look at the mintage on an 1864 S $10 gold piece, this coin has a total mintage of 2500.
I was going to say 1864 is mid-Civil War.
Yes.
And specie and gold of that age is generally rare to begin with.
Yes. So I said, "Holy macaroni, this is a rare coin." So I started doing some homework, what kind of while he was standing there. And I asked him, I said, "What do you want for this coin?" And he looked at me and he said, "I want $60,000. I said, $60,000. This coin's raw. I can't pay that kind of money for a raw coin. So we went back and forth a couple times, and I said, you know what? Let's just get it certified. Let's send it in, get it certified, and then we'll be on the same page. As far as what it's worth, because it's going to because the coin itself had a couple of decent contact marks on it, which I wasn't sure if they were going to call it, if they were going to call it damage or if they were going to just go ahead and put it in a holder. So we sent the coin to NGC, where it went into an XF45 holder. So it's straight graded, no problems.
It is amazing that anything of that age still grades.
Yeah, well, that's true. So this coin is straight graded, no problems, and the seller, who was actually an agent for an estate, so that this gentleman's a lawyer, and he was handling the estate for him, came back to me with an offer higher, obviously, than the last offer, and we kind of went back and forth, and we settled on a very large amount of money. Let's just say.
We'll just say it was a lot.
It was in the high five figures.
Wow.
So once we did, we ended up coming to an agreement. I went ahead and bought the coin, and the first person that I could think of that I needed to talk to about this coin was Doug Winter. So we called Doug Winter. We said, "Hey, Doug Winter." We came across this really
I
rare
have my
coin.
house mortgaged here, and I need to dump this coin.
Well, now, I mean, it was one of those things that, we in the store we have a credit line for reasons just like these. We don't like to use it if we don't have to, but if we have to, then we can.
And this is a darn good reason to
Darn
do
good
so.
reason to. Yep. So we got a hold of Doug Winter, and he said this was the 10th example known. And so after a little conversation with Mr. Winter, we decided to consign the coin to him. And it just sold the other day for $97,000.
Wow.
Yep. And that just came strolling in the door of the coin store.
Wow. So that is something. Well, it's good to know that you made a little money on that.
I made a little bit. I mean, I didn't want to tear the guy's head off because, like I said, I know this guy. I've been dealing with him for a long time. He comes up with some cool stuff, so I wanted to make sure I treated him right. And I made a little bit of money. Doug made a little bit of money, and hopefully the family got treated well.
Not only does he bring in some cool stuff, but he brought in some of the coolest stuff.
Exactly. So, obviously everybody has to make a little bit of money in that situation, but it was just amazing that this coin was floating around, and Doug Winter is the guy on this stuff. He traces the history on these coins. He knows where these coins come and go and who has what and where it goes. And he said this coin was new. Nobody had ever seen it in auction before. So it must have been with this family for a really stinking long time.
It's really cool to deal with people that keep those kind of tabs on it, and that you brought it back into the numismatic world where a coin of this caliber clearly belongs.
Well, and yeah, it's such a rare coin that I was just blown away by how rare the coin was, and second of all, I was kind of scared because we had kind of started talking numbers before we had gotten it certified, and I was like, if it comes back in the details older, it's probably worth about $30,000, and if it certifies, it just depends on what it certifies as to what it's worth, and so oh Lord, there was a lot of stress there for a couple days.
Yeah, you're white knuckling this one a little bit through the grading service.
Yeah, and that's just one of those things that it is what it is. You really can't tell them how to do their jobs. You just hope that they do their jobs right. And that's what I feel like the coin was graded right. Mr. Winter of course felt that the coin was graded right as well. So he was happy. I'm happy. Everybody's happy.
We would like to thank our contributors, the Facebook friends, Twitter followers, people who follow our blogs, people who wrote to ask questions, or people who have in some other way inspired us. A very special thanks to Robert Shippee.
He is the man.
He is the man for coming in and walking into our little coin collector cave tonight and joining us on the show.
And he made it out alive.
He did, unscathed.
I don't know about that, but
Yet another person has survived the gauntlet of the coin show. Our thanks to the great folks at the American Numismatic Association for their support. Visit them at money.org. Our thanks to Tony Alvarez and the Tony Alvarez Band for our theme music. Visit them at TonyAlvarezBand.com. We'd also like to thank the Coffin Cats for their musical contributions. Visit them at CoffinCatsRock.com. We'd also like to thank May Otley for her help. And a big thanks to our intern and research staff, Sam Schaefer.
Is he been promoted now?
No, he is the entire research staff.
Yeah.
No, I asked you about promoting him earlier, and you were like, yeah, okay,
No. I think Sam does wonderful work. He's a tremendous help to us.
He is an asset.
He is, and he also likes to make sure that I don't sound like a moron, which I do a pretty good job of from time to time.
And then I would hope that the man has a very nice Christmas bonus coming this year.
Well, we'll see about that.
And while those people are important contributors to this show, their importance absolutely pales in comparison to you, the listeners, without whom this entire endeavor would be completely pointless. We love our audience, and we love our audience contributions even more. Send us your thoughts. Email us, Mike@coinshowradio.com or Matt@coinshowradio.com. Or you can also ask us questions. Send your question to questions@coinshowradio.com. And if you visit our brand new webpage, well, it's not so new anymore, located at coinshowradio.com, you will find a link there where you can email your questions. Or you can also find all kinds of new things to explore and enjoy. Report what you think back to us. Give us your feedback. We always welcome anything that you have to say on the news site and what you'd like to see us do there, as well as any other feedback about the show. Check out Matt's gallery of the cool stuff that walks into his shop on occasion at coinshowradio.com. Feel free to stop by and give him some feedback. Tell him you'd like to see more pictures because they are spectacular. And the coins that walk into Matt's shop are very cool. We love to see them when we can.
It's very rare that I get a backlog of coolest thing, but I've got one now. So
okay, well, just more pictures, please. More
working on
pictures. Yeah, I know. Like our page on Facebook, come and comment on one of our posts or post something of your own. Just try and keep it coin related. You can find us either by searching The Coin Show or Coin Show Radio. Follow us on Twitter. You'll occasionally find some exclusive content there as well. Every once in a while I get kind of mouthy and crabby and I post stuff on Twitter. But you'll also find all sorts of neat things that we post to our website to Facebook and social media every day. And that is also thank you to our illustrious research staff.
/intern /lunch getter.
Sam, we'll just call him Sam the Man.
Sam the Man, I love it.
Sam the Man. You can find us or even mention us in your discussion. We are at The Coin Show. We also have an Instagram page as well. We're building it every day, and we can be found there as The Coin Show. You can listen to our show on Spreaker.com. Just go to www.spreaker.com and search Coin Show Radio. Or you can find our show on players at various internet sites such as money.org and cointalk.com. If you'd like to host a player on your website, just email me, Mike@coinshowradio.com for details. We still have yet to receive any 100th episode contributions from our listeners.
What?
Don't be shy. We want contributions. Now, it's like you guys are not shy in sharing on our Facebook page. You're not shy in giving us your feedback at Mike and Matt at coinshowradio.com. We love it. We appreciate it. But we'd like your contributions. It's like, give us something. We'll work with it. And you can be immortalized forever on our 100th episode. Think about that. Record a note, something like, hey, this is, so-and-so from Your Name, Alabama, and I'd like to say congratulations to Mike and Matt on 100 episodes of The Coin Show. That's all it takes. Send us something and help us celebrate.
Yeah.
We've resolved the download issues, and every once in a while, we kind of screw things up a little bit. I know that with episode 94, I kind of had the wrong link in there, and you were very quick to point that out, and we got it fixed right away. Please give us feedback as much as you can, but they are there for you to download now, even on your mobile devices. And if you still want to do it, we have a Windows 8 app, and it's available in the Windows 8 phone app store. Download it several hundred times. If you have an Android phone, you can download it on Amazon.com for only $1.99. Both are absolute bargains for your entertainment dollar and are guaranteed status symbols. And as always, our show is available for free on iTunes. You can download full versions of the show there. We urge you to do so. Share it with your friends. More people continue to find us every single day and wonder why they've never listened before. Be the first among your friends to find the Coin Show and share it with them. You'll be the trendsetter, and your jealous friends will be trend followers. So for the Coin Show, I'm Mike.
And I'm Matt.
And we'll talk to you next time on the Coin Show.
I can tell by the way you look at me that it will not be forever, but that's all right with me. But tonight
2015 Kennedy halves are now available directly